You know what I love is watching people who work their asses off get shine and get put in good spots, and people who work their butts off. And that is our next guest. Thanks, Hammer. We've got ESPN NFL draft analyst and insider Matt Miller. It's got a good ring to it, old friend. How you doing?
Oh my goodness, I'm doing well. It's so great to be back on with you.
You are everywhere. Are you sleeping? How are you? How is your work-life balance these days?
Not sleeping. I will sleep next week. As you can see, no sleep this week. It's good though. I mean, this is the week that we all get excited for. You know, we literally spend a year following these prospects, getting to know them, talking to teams about their strengths and weaknesses and what they're like as people. So it's great to have this moment that's kind of a culmination of that. And like you were just saying about Chicago, like I think we sometimes forget, like, because we get 10 minutes to talk about it. It's like, even for these players who this has been their dream since they probably first picked up a football, and they get 10 minutes where you kind of get to celebrate that moment. And then you're off to a party, and then you're on a private jet, and you're going to work on Friday, basically meeting an entirely new franchise and organization. So it's going to be a lot of fun, though.
I like that Caleb Williams did not take the private jet to Detroit. He took, and then he made it very clear to everyone, listen, I'm #1 overall picks. We're just like us. You know, they're riding coach. They're on these flights. He was with Rome, of course. It's all very exciting. The vibes are immaculate in Detroit already. I cannot wait to see what happened. I keep joking, like Roger Goodell went from eating a bowl of M&Ms during pandemic to hanging out with Eminem ahead of this draft, which is great. We know what's happening at 1. Chicago, enjoy it. But all eyes, mine especially, on the Commanders at #2. No indication of where they're leaning. It's absolute chaos. Of course, you know, they did the joint bachelorette vibed quarterback visit where they brought everybody in. Yeah. You're plugged into these teams. You know what's going on. What do you think is the choice at 2?
I think they maybe upset Jaden Daniels and his camp with the Topgolf date, but I think it was the right thing to do, to get everyone there and kind of see how those players work together, to see, you know, who emerges as the leader, basically. And so I still think they'll take Jaden Daniels. There was probably some phone calls behind the scenes to smooth things over, of them saying, you know, it's like the Senior Bowl. We just want to throw you guys in a competitive situation and kind of see what happens, see who rises to the top. And maybe that was Jaden Daniels. Maybe it was Drake May. Maybe it was, you know, J.J. McCarthy. But I still think when it's all said and done, tomorrow night, Jaden Daniels will be a Washington Commander with the 2nd overall pick.
And that will be absolutely incredible. And he's got like all the upside in the world. I was talking to somebody yesterday, one of the decision makers in the draft, and it's hard to find a comp to him physically. It's hard to find, you know, and these guys love their comps. And is it Marcus Mariota? No, he's a little bit stronger. Like, can he put on weight? Like, these are the kind of nitty-gritty questions that everybody's asking. And I like that you're saying that the visit was like Lord of the Flies more than the Bachelorette. Like, who's going to be the alpha and the lead dog at the end of the day? And we'll see who it is tomorrow night, of course. You pointed out the other day that Marvin Harrison Jr. has only gone on 2 official visits, Chicago and Arizona. Why would you point that out? Like, let's talk about this. And, you know, you told people, do it. I'm just going to, you know, agent of chaos. Let me just put this out there. I mean, you know, what are we doing here? Arizona, an obvious destination. Is there a world where Chicago moves up from 9?
I think they could try. It certainly makes it fun, right? Like, we do all these mock drafts, Kay, and we're like, oh, this team will take this player. And we always forget to factor in someone just getting antsy. Like last year was the Houston Texans. They took C.J. Stroud at 2. We all sat back and we're like, dang, that was a really good pick. Okay, let's move on. Who's on the clock at #3? And here comes Houston to get Will Anderson Jr. And so we've seen that teams can do that. And I think Chicago would be wise to make that call. Now, the problem is they don't have a lot of draft capital. They only have 4 picks in this draft. They have none on day 3. So it would get expensive to do this. But I think you at least have to call and see, hey, if he slides to 6, you know, what does it take to get up there? And I think there is a real world possibility. We've all heard that Malik Neighbors, there are teams that like him as the top receiver in this class. So I think for Chicago, you're doing the smart thing, investigating Marvin Harrison Jr. just in case he does fall. The part of that tweet that I found most interesting is that he's only visited 2 teams, the team that has the 1st pick and the team that has the 4th pick. You know, he hasn't visited with the LA Chargers. I know there were reports that he had met with the New York Giants. I could never confirm that. The list that I got was that he only had the 2 meetings. I spoke to he and his dad at the Ohio State Pro Day. At that time, they had only had the 2 meetings set up. They did meet with 9 teams at the Combine. The Giants may have been in that mix, but I will be shocked if he's not the pick by the Arizona Cardinals, just because you're there at 4. their number one receiver is Greg Dortch. I love Greg Dortch, but that's your number one receiver right now. They have to get Kyler Murray a big time weapon at wideout, and that is Marvin Harrison Jr.
It's less to me about Marvin Harrison Jr. at all. If even just the discussion of this, it's so much more about what Chicago thinks about Caleb Williams. Like that is going in times 1,000. If you move up and pay the cost of that, even if they, we're talking about it, let's say they do it, that is just the pressure, all the pressure in the world on Caleb Williams. That is we do believe you are. This is the bizarro world. Justin Fields, where we surrounded you with nobody, and now we're going to go all in. And obviously Chicago learning from their mistakes here, but it'll be interesting. Even if they don't make that move and don't grab Marvin or any other receiver, don't move from 9, whatever they move back, whatever. Caleb, I think, is walking into the best situation we've seen for a number 1 overall pick ever.
Yeah, a lot better than last year with Bryce Young, which that was lauded as this great destination, but that was more so about the coaching staff than it was about the roster. And I think with Chicago, we're all excited about the roster. They have 2 very good young offensive tackles. They have, a backfield now with DeAndre Swift that is really solid. They have elite pass catchers in DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. Cole Kmet is a great young tight end and a fantastic leader on that team. They added Gerald Everett. That move kind of flew under the radar, but now they have a really good second tight end as a pass catcher. So it is a great spot. And the defense is strong enough that they're not going to have to score 30 points a game to win, which is going to be unique for Caleb because they just go 45 points a week to win at USC. So now he's going to understand what it's like to have a good run game and a defense that can actually have your back at times. So I think Minnesota, would be the other one that's really, really good because of Justin Jefferson, because of Jordan Addison. They also have 2 good tackles on the offensive line, but you have to pay Justin Jefferson next. And that's the key. Keeping Justin in Minnesota is what makes that an attractive destination. But I think that's why they're one of those teams that I'm sure every mock draft you read in the next 24 hours will have Minnesota trading up to get a quarterback because they know they have to pay Justin Jefferson $30 million or more per year. And so they have to spend there and they have to save a quarterback.
Yes, it doesn't work if you pay both. I outlined that. Hamilton did some crazy research on that. It literally, outside of Brady, it does not work, or outside of Mahomes, rather. Okay, so interesting that you're saying all of it. And as you're saying about Chicago, it's just Shane Waldron, wow, the pressure to put it all together with all of these pieces is insane. But I'm very excited for that. There's draft rumors. Obviously, we're sort of starting one. We're dabbling in the Marvin Harrison to Chicago vibes. And there's the Pats aren't going to take a quarterback. They're going to trade down. The Giants are going to trade up. The Falcons could take Penix at 8. All this is going on. Is there a pre-draft rumor you're all in on?
I mean, I love all of them. If there was one that I actually say that I would believe, it would be that Penix goes in the top 20. I don't think Atlanta, the Falcons have done some, risky things, only drafting offensive playmakers the last 3 years. I will fall out of my chair tomorrow night if they draft Michael Penix at 8 overall. But I do think the Raiders at 13, the Broncos at 12, those are realistic situations in which he could go. So I think what we're hearing right now is, I've talked to coaches even that say Penix is going to go a lot earlier than you think he is, or he's going to go a lot earlier than where you have him rated. And so, but it's where's that point? And the closer we get to the draft, it just keeps going higher and higher. I'm predicting now, someone will come out and say, well, the Giants really like him at 6 overall. I'm not buying that he's going to go that high, but I do think there's a real world scenario in which he could go 12 or 13 overall.
Which would mean that he's convinced people the injury is not, a one-off. It's not something. I mean, that would be the concern there, why he'd end up being a value for a team later on in the draft, that the injuries aren't a concern and that maybe he got the best out of his receivers and they didn't make him, because that's certainly something people are saying.
Yeah, no, that's the rub, right? He's 24 years old, or will be, I think, this weekend. He's got 4 straight years of season-ending injuries at Indiana, which the ACL after 2 years, your chance of re-tearing that are almost nil. You don't really have to worry about that anymore. But your last point is a great one, is who made whom at that offense. His receivers, if you watch the Texas game, it looks like he was the greatest quarterback who ever played. 2 weeks later they play Michigan and he can't hit anyone because Michigan moved him off his spot. So I think that is the question right now, where coaches get involved and they love the arm talent. They love the accuracy. They love what he does when the pocket's clean. I think scouts see more of the traits, and that's where, 3 months ago he was viewed as a second-round prospect. Now here we are, day before the draft, and we're all hearing he could go in the top 20. I think that's because coaches get involved and they say, well, we can fix that, or we can scheme around that, or our team has players that would allow him to thrive in that scenario. So that is kind of the difference that you get in the evaluation process. People wonder, like, what changed? There were no games being played. A lot of times what changes is something as simple as that, is the coaches get involved and say, well, for our scheme, that's not an issue, that he doesn't, he doesn't run like Lamar Jackson. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's fine. We don't need him to do that.
Listen, I'm so happy for you. First of all, you love Joe Milton, and I love Joe Milton, so we have a shared bond for that. Penix isn't going to be around by the time you get to what I'm so happy about, is that you're going to be on the ESPN ABC broadcast for rounds 4 through 7. That is so cool. I cannot wait to watch. This is where you thrive. The sick pup lane of, like, who, these lesser talked about guys. Give me the day 3 sleeper that you're sitting there excited to talk about, and you're saying, please let me talk about this guy.
Yeah, I told Hamilton, we actually do that. We get on phone calls, like with Kuiper, and Field Yates is joining us this year, and we call dibs on guys. Like, hey, that's my guy. And, mine, it's like, I'm a Midwest guy, so they always give me, the Texas guys, the Mizzou guys. But this year I was like, you have to give me Luke McCaffrey. And not just because his, dad played in the NFL and his brother's Christian McCaffrey. I actually love Luke as a player. Like, we can, if his last name were Adams instead of McCaffrey, I would still love him. His transition from being a top quarterback prospect to being a very, very good slot receiver for Rice last year. We're all looking for that. Who's this year's Puka Nacua? Luke McCaffrey has the skills to be that player, where we're talking about, like, who's a 4th-round wideout who could come in and have a 70-catch season. It all does depend on where he goes, but he has all the traits to be a really good rookie wide receiver, somebody that's going to have a really nice career where he does make a name for himself outside of that, great last name that he has.
Amazing. And you also have a mock draft coming out this afternoon, I hear. A little birdie named Hamilton just told me that in my ear. So make sure, guys, check that out. You will be on ESPN that day 3 and, like, not sleeping until then. And then you'll play Legos with your kids, which I know that you're big into. So enjoy. Have the thought of the Lego dream of your future vacation time off. But until then, thank you for all of the work, all of the insight. ESPN NFL draft analyst and insider Matt Miller. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Of course, guys, go check out that mock draft of Matt Miller. And up next, we're going to